Welcome back to Ultra Uncovered. I'm Russell Ditzworth, and I'm here with co-host Corinne Chalvoy. And today we are interviewing Vince Paikowski. He is getting ready to run the Leadville Trail 100, and we'd love to hear about how things are going and get to know you a little bit, Vince, as well. So I guess to start us off here, tell us a little bit about your background, where you live and train, and some of your history with running.
Yeah, absolutely. First, thank you so much for reaching out, having me up here. Actually, when you guys dropped the first podcast you did about Leadville, listened to that right away. And I've tried, in just this build up, consuming as much Leadville content as possible to get as many opinions or sides of the story as possible before going and tackling the course. So appreciate what you guys are doing.
Oh,
But yeah,
awesome.
I'm Vince Paikowski. I'm currently in the Army. Born and raised in Wisconsin. Joined the Army after college. From there, served for about 4 years in the 75th Ranger Regiment, and then came up to Fort Carson to be a little closer to family. My in-laws live up here, so we've got two daughters, me and my wife, so we could be closer to Grandma and Grandpa, and we've had an awesome time out here in Colorado. And yeah, a few years ago, I found like the Silver Rush 50, and found out that that was a qualifier for Leadville. And Leadville is obviously, I think it's a dream for everyone that grows up as a runner. Having, the quintessential read the book as a 13-year-old, just trying to figure out how to run a mile fast on the track. And then, even through college, always having an eye on the longer distance stuff, 10K on the track in college, and then getting out of that and hop into the roads for some marathons and really loving the longer stuff. So, for me, this is kind of like the 16 years in the making, it feels like, to finally be at this race. And unfortunately, because the Army is the way it is, we have to move right after the race. So, this is kind of like the highlight for my time in Colorado, and then me and the family will be moving on to our next role in life and in the Army. So
That,
just excited to race.
that's so cool. Thank you. First of all, for your service, appreciate it. And also, were you a runner growing up? Did you run in school? Like, what intrigued you about the longer distance and the trails?
Yeah, so my dad ran ultras while I was growing up. He was big in the 50 miles. So
Okay.
I grew up like at the park, getting dropped off by the other dads as they're doing their 5 mile loops, and me and the other kids would just go play in the woods, knowing, you see dad every 35, 45 minutes, and he'll come check in. So really grew up around the sport, and then yeah, ran in high school, ended up running in college at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, which is a smaller Division I program. Loved it, but at the
Mhm.
same time I was doing ROTC, so I could never really dedicate myself,
Mm.
completely into the running space. So saw
Mhm.
some success in college, but saw more success as I left college and was able to kind of plan my day out a little more deliberately. So really in college, there's guys with a lot of speed. I was never the guy with a lot of closing speed. So the longer distances were always kind of where I kind of naturally fit in. I ran in the 30s, the low 30s for 10 kilometers in college. Had a
Mm.
ton of fun. But again, there's guys, in the NCAA running 27s now, and doing some pretty remarkable things. So I always just felt like a little fish in a big pond. And then really never really looked at the trails until we came out to Colorado. Saw all these awesome races that were pretty inspiring, and spent some time out on the trails, and was like, this is way more fun to train out here than, pounding on the roads all the time. So my first ever trail run out here was the Quad Rock 25.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a good
and we
race.
went through, yeah, it was an awesome race, except I had no idea what I was doing. So I went through under course record pace with the leaders, 17 miles in, and had not consumed a drop of water. So
Uh-oh.
learned the hard way that full body cramps will get you in the mountains, and you'll have to walk her in if you don't fuel right out here. So and then just fell in love with the idea of it's hard, it takes time. Pace doesn't really matter. It's all about just continuing to move and fuel and take care of yourself. So
Oh, that's incredible. Actually, one of the first times I came across your name was actually just through the local Colorado Springs, the Pikes Peak Roadrunners Winter Series. You and Mark Gaudet, I think is how you
Yep.
pronounce the name, would just go blitz these courses at there. And I was somewhere in the field in the background there, but I saw your names there. And then also, I mean, obviously, you described that experience at the Quad Rock 25, but you clearly figured some things out because in 2022, we raced again the same race, the Silver Rush 50 miler, and you ran that in like 6 hours mid. So tell us a little bit about what you maybe learned from Quad Rock and how you applied that to such a successful day at Silver Rush.
Yeah, so I'd never really had a coach before. So after Quad Rock didn't go well, I reached out to Scott Johnson. At that point, he was at Uphill Athlete, now at Evoke Endurance, and he and I started working together and really talking just like the fueling aspect, the eccentric load management aspect. How do you get durable in the gym? I'm an infantryman, so I have to stay somewhat strong as well and be able to pull my weight for my job. So, developing the strength and the endurance, to really manage the mountains was one thing. But learning, how many carbohydrates per hour can you take in? How many milliliters of liquid per hour can you take in? And learning that all of that is a trainable physiological response that you can really hone into and train as its own little training stimulus. Became just a ton of fun. So we played around with a lot of different things, and in the build up to Silver Rush, we tried a few experimental things. The build wasn't exactly as I wanted, but the race was a ton of fun. And we had some hard set rules in Silver Rush that we're going to use for Leadville as well, and they're all tied to heart rate. If there's one, there's only going to be one metric on my watch when the race goes off, and that's going to be my heart rate.
Oh, wow.
And if that puts me behind other people and in a position that's a little further back, then that's okay, because that's on the day what my body allows. But really trying to dial into being specific to, hey, what is your body allowing on the day, and how far can you take it at that level, and having a pretty good idea of this heart rate is going to lead to this much time on course or this ability on course. So trying to dial in specifically to me and not worry about what other people are doing.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Are you doing a armband, chest strap? What do you do for heart rate monitoring?
Yeah, I stick strictly to the chest strap.
Chest strap? Okay.
I haven't played around with the armbands yet. I've heard
Yeah.
great things about the armbands.
Yeah.
But got into training with the chest strap and then got too close to make a big switch. So
Sure. Yeah. So, cool. Very interesting. That's going to be kind of your guiding metric on the day.
yeah.
Were you able to fuel and hydrate Silver Rush? Like, was that successful in implementing some of those techniques?
Yeah, absolutely. So, that was the first time I really aimed for about a liter an hour of liquid, and was able to put down between 90 to 100 grams of carbs an hour, pretty consistently and reliably, and really felt good throughout the entire race. Never felt at once like I was on the limit, or, probably should have chased faster sooner. But again, we had the rule of this is the heart rate, and we're not gonna deviate from it. We're gonna stick to what we know will work. And respecting the distance of you tip a little bit in these races, and you pay back the piper tenfold. So keeping it a little on the conservative side early generally pays off later on.
Do you find that like your interpretation of what you expect to see on heart rate matches up? Obviously, you've been training like this a lot, so I bet you can guess your heart rate at certain efforts, like within a few beats almost.
Yeah, yes, until during this build we started playing with the poles a lot for the climb up Hope Pass, and so going from like a bipedal motion to like a quad pedal motion where you're also using your arms.
Yeah.
I find that I've got to pay a lot more attention to it, because all of a sudden you're consuming a lot more blood's being sent to your arms and your legs, so there's a natural spike in the heart rate, and trying to manage some of that but also knowing that while your heart rate's spiking, your eccentric loading or your concentric loading when you're climbing on your legs is lower. So, you can probably afford a few beats more per minute, and you're going to be okay.
Yeah, totally.
Well,
So is Leadville your first 100 miler?
Yes. Yeah. So this
How,
is my first 100 miler.
okay. How are you
Yeah.
feeling about that challenge, that, going into something, a big, big goal like that?
Yeah. It is incredible. It's an incredible feeling, but it's also a daunting task still in the mind.
Mhm.
Because, you approach a marathon and you've probably ran 22 or 23 miles in a marathon build pretty close to marathon pace and have a good idea of, on the day I'm tapered, I've got 3 more miles to go, things are going to be all right. You can only approach so close to the sun in training, and I think I did that. I think I got pretty close to my limit of what my body was capable in training, but there's still a lot of unknowns, Once I cross 50 miles, I'm thankful for every mile after that because that is new territory. And again, trying to go into this race respecting the distance and understanding that 100 miles is a pretty lofty goal to begin with, and you got to respect the course, respect the distance, and respect the amount of time it's going to take out there if you want to do well. And there's definitely a part of me that wants to throw caution to the wind and go race from the gun and have fun. But one of my really good friends last year did the race at mile 97, had to drop out with kidney issues, and
Ooh.
he paid the piper for going out too hot. So things like that can happen, and I think just taking care of the body and respecting the course and the distance matters in a week's time.
That's brutal. My husband had to drop at 70, 75-ish,
Yeah.
78. And I feel
Uh,
like that's really close, but 97, and it's like you don't realize until you've been in the position of running a 100 miler that like that is absolutely a possibility, that people are like, why couldn't you just finish it's 3 miles. It's like sometimes it's just impossible to do
yeah.
that, and like something happens that you can't just say I'm just gonna
Yep.
finish and do these last 3 miles. So it's
Yeah.
yeah, definitely something that is a unique part of that 100-mile distance
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. I think I'm lucky to have the job that I have because long endurance type stretches are nothing new. Whether it's a 6-day field exercise on no sleep and near continuous movement, or a 3-day shot at something weighted in the mountains. We pretty consistently over the past 6-7 years, we've gone out and we've done some hard things as teams, and been out for a long time and had to fuel and figure out problems on the fly. So I think that's a huge asset. But again, running 100 miles, it's new territory, and I'm definitely going to respect that territory.
it's amazing, and it sounds like you are very on top of the preparation piece of this. So talk to us a little bit about like your crew, pacers, like what is your plan for the team effort as this goes, and you get back to Twin Lakes. That getting back to Twin Lakes, you basically can kind of hand yourself off to your team and lighten some of that load. So tell us a little bit about what that looks like for you.
Yeah, so I am super blessed to have my wife coming out to the race. We've got the in-laws watching the two
What's your
girls.
wife's name? Give her a shout
Her
out.
Yeah, her name's Taylor.
Taylor.
She's awesome, and she's a calming presence. So she will be at every aid station, and then my mom and my dad are also flying out to help crew. So I'll have the people that know me best in tough times out there for just the crew aspect, and really happy to just if things are going wrong, having people that can surround me with love. And if things are going right, the best cheer squad on the planet. So, and then having my dad there with just his experience in ultra marathoning, to make some decisions, especially when, I've kind of told him past 62 miles, I'm not allowed to make decisions for myself. So whatever you guys say, I'm just gonna, do it.
Really good.
So that'll be super cool. And then at mile 62, I'm gonna pick up my good friend Mike Clark. He's an awesome runner in his own right. Ran at Mississippi State in college. but is also one of the psychologists right now at Team USA
Oh,
in the
wow.
springs. So
Okay.
picking him up at 62 and hoping, he either keeps my head on right or puts it back on right for me to get back in the zone. And then my best friend from college, Garrett Miller, is going to take me home to the finish line, and he is probably the most positive presence you can imagine bundled in a human being. So no matter how good or how bad it's going to go, he's going to have a smile on his face, and he's going to chit chat the whole way in. So really looking forward to that stretch and spending some time with guys that I've spent hundreds and hundreds of miles with in my lifetime and capping this thing off.
That's sounds like a very dialed crew, and fascinating that you have someone from a psychological, kind of sports psych standpoint there. I think that's something that we'll probably start to see more and more, in races. Is I've got my nutritionist here, I've got somebody, a PT, and I've got maybe somebody who's for the mental side of things, because that's such a huge part of it. So that's really cool that you'll have that asset and that tool. All right, so talking a little bit about kind of your kit, your shoes. What are you going to be wearing shoes on your feet? And then is there anything from a fueling standpoint that is like your go-to?
Yeah, so I've been fortunate enough to, on the military side of things, I've worked with Deckers in the past to create some boots for the military
Cool.
that we utilized during some military competitions that we did on this side of the house. So obviously they're the parent company of Hoka, so we've been working together on a little carbon-plated trail shoe that we'll be wearing out there and having some fun in. I've done a ton of training miles in it. Absolutely love it. It dries wicked quick. It
Okay,
holds
hold on.
almost
Is
no
this
weight.
is this unique from the Hoka
Tecton
Tecton
X3?
X3 and the
Yeah.
2.5? This is a
Yes.
secret Hoka Decker,
It's a
military
military.
Yeah.
edition.
Yep.
Dude, this is cool.
Yep. So we're gonna give it a roll. We've spent probably the past year and a half giving feedback and trying
Wow.
to make a shoe that is a little lighter, a little more aggressive. Probably closer to a road shoe than most trail shoes. But that's what's comfortable for me and what gives me some pop off the ground. So really like that. And then in terms of fuel, I've spent some time just getting into what they have on course, because that limits the amount of, problems and logistical nightmares that you can run into out there.
Sure.
If crew, doesn't make the shuttle from Outward Bound to Twin Lakes because it's not running well or whatever, and you show up, being on some performance, and some scratch and being used to taking those things in is awesome. And then, they've gotten a lot of grief lately, but Spring Energy Gel, I've always, loved them. I still take them.
You might just have to take
and they
twice
still
as
work
many,
for
right?
me.
I
So
mean,
that's it. I mean, it tastes good. It goes down easy, and I've never had gut rot or GI issues with them. So I'm gonna keep using them, and but trying to really focus on what they've got on course and getting that used to my body, so that if anything goes wrong, you can just quick pit, and not have to worry about you missed your crew or you missed a moment.
do you do liquid calories at all, or is it usually just electrolyte in your bottles?
Yeah, so the Scratch Super High Carb
Yep.
has
Yep.
a good amount of calories in it. I find that it's not as sweet as Tailwind, so I can consume a little bit more
Yep.
of it than some other products. So I've been super happy with that product, and it's been working super well.
Totally agreed. It's
Yeah.
it is that's a staple for me as well. So I don't know. Russ he might be coming in and out here, but we'll keep going. Oh, you're there, Russ, aren't you? Perfect. Yeah, we're
Yep.
good. Okay. So you're wearing a shoe that nobody knows about, the secret prototype. That's super cool. Are they going to call it the Vince when they what's
No. I don't think so. I think there's probably a few people in the arsenal that have given it a try and given it a spin. But just lucky enough to be working with a team that gave me the green light to put it on the feet day of. So
heck yeah, that's
excited
cool.
to give it a try.
Very cool. Russ, do you have any other questions before our kind of final?
Yeah. So coming off of Silver Rush, I knew that, I was not ready for the 100-mile distance. Loved the 50. It felt great. But, just developmentally wise was not in a position that I wanted to run 100 miles, a few months or a month later. No, so I took the coin, and then I found out that I was going to be sent to, or I went to Korea for 9 months on a military assignment, and messaged the race director and said, like, I would love to use my coin, but I can't in 2023. Would you mind rolling it to
Got it.
2024? And Lifetime was gracious enough to let me roll it an extra year. And that really helped with just, I've been able to get some fast road marathons in, some fast trail work in, and a lot of time of just developing enough volume to where I feel comfortable going after the 100. Yeah, yeah. So I've obviously listened to, the past few podcasts trying to take in as much information as possible. And it's awesome and it's inspiring to see these guys that are lining up, and brave enough to say like, hey, I'm shooting my shot and I'm going for the course record. Having run out there, that course record is fast. It is no joke. It is, you've got to be going through Twin Lakes to Winfield and back in 4:30, 4:45 in order to make that happen on race day. That is a steep task. So, I look at, I've got a spreadsheet with more data than I think anybody would want to see. But especially like if you go back in the history of the race and you look at what it takes to be on the podium, it's in the 16 hours it takes to be on the podium. And, I'm a believer that the law of large numbers is usually spot on. So I'm going to race, for in the 16s, and again, listen to my body and let some of the metrics that my body are given to me dictate, what's allowed on the day or for a portion of the race. But I think, the fitness that I'm in and the shape that I'm bringing into the race, I think sub 17 is definitely a doable thing. But again, like anything can happen in the 100, and you got to respect the distance. And on the day we'll find out what happens.
Yeah, so you told us you're a data engineer, right? That's your background.
Yeah.
So obviously
Yep.
the data, and I've coached people that are very data driven and focused too, and you're going to be looking at the metrics of the heart rate. So what I'm curious about is like what happens if you hit the boulevard and you're really close to someone or they're chasing you and your heart rate data says you shouldn't push it. What are you going to do?
The heart rate data goes out the window
Yes,
with
good answer.
make queen inbound.
May Queen inbound, perfect.
It's the same way that like in a marathon, you get above 22, 23 miles and you've got to start taking the rules off and you've got to let the body do what it has and is capable of on the day. But, I think, getting to Twin Lakes the first time, feeling like the warm up is over, and getting to Twin Lakes the second time, feeling like the race is really starting, is important, and not being in a position where, we've got a power hike out of Twin Lakes is going to be super important to set up for a good second half of the race.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, I'm sure you're a huge inspiration to your girls, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you out there. And sounds like this is just the start of your whole ultra running career and journey. So just very excited to learn a little bit about it and continue to follow you. And we'll see you out there at Leadville.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. See you guys soon.
Thanks.